This is a very important case when it comes to the rights of citizens and their civil rights being violated, and how it could lead into a situation where, as in the case of these brothers, one is still locked up since June of 1st, 2021, having been detained by the court, and the other ones are facing charges. And the bottom line of all of this is that on that particular day, we can there's body camera footage, and you can see no point at which these brothers did anything that would have warranted the aggression of the police officers as they approached them while they were simply standing outside of their family home.
Let's embark on the Ark Republic to hear current news that's published. More than gossip and chatter, covering current affairs that matter. We talk issues with professional views, all keeping you in queue. We wanted a higher vibe for these days and times, to free the voices and minds, reporting the sign of the times, so all can build. Let's shine, yeah.
Greetings wherever you are situated in the world. My name is Kaya Niami Shivers. Welcome to Ark Republic. Tonight, we have an exclusive interview with attorney Cynthia Hardaway, a New Jersey-based private attorney who is currently representing one of the brothers in a case that is picking up steam in New Jersey that we call the Rodwell Spivey case. How are you doing, attorney Hardaway?
I'm fine. How are you? Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for listening to the previous podcast I had with Africa, who gave us some insight, and I'm so happy that you reached out and said there's much more to the case that I want you to know about. So thank you for I know you have a lot to do, so thank you for taking the time out to speak with me.
No problem. No problem.
All right. Thank you so much. So can you please explain, just give us a quick and dirty summary of what we call the Rodwell Spivey case, and then we'll get into the particulars.
Okay. So I like to call it the Rodwell Spivey brothers case, because these are blood brothers. And that's important to note when you think about what motivated them to act in the manner in which they act on the day of the incident. Quickly, this is a situation where two of the brothers this happened outside of their family home. That's one thing. So it was broad daylight, probably around 1:30. They were outside their family home. And Mr. Africa painted the picture of what happened accurately. I just wanted to clarify from the legal aspect, just so there's no misunderstanding about this case, because in my view, this is a very important case when it comes to the rights of citizens and their civil rights being violated, and how it could lead into a situation where, as in the case of these brothers, one is still locked up since June of 1st, 2021, having been detained by the court, and the other ones are facing charges. And the bottom line of all of this is that on that particular day, we can there's body camera footage, and you can see no point at which these brothers did anything that would have warranted the aggression of the police officers as they approached them while they were simply standing outside of their family home. And that's the point. Law enforcement, in my view, when they did their publications and spoke about this case, wanted to focus on the reaction of the brothers. However, it's imperative, in my view, that we talk about what prompted them to act in this way in the first place. If you are any type of citizen, and I don't care if it's in the South Ward of Newark, Montclair, Short Hills, wherever it may be, in any city or state in these United States of America, you should be able to go out in front of your house and stand there and mind your business. You should not be put in a position where you have to decide how you're going to react instinctually because officers decided that they wanted, for whatever reason, and we call it racial profiling, but whatever reason, to bother you, to come into your space when there's nothing there to warrant it. This is not a condemnation against police officers. Police officers, they're sworn to do their duty, to uphold the law. We understand all of that. But if a law is not being broken and nobody's doing anything to want your attention, then it's our view that the police officers ought not to give those people that attention, and especially in an aggressive way, such that you don't have time to stop and reflect and say, hey, what's going on here? You just react because it's not procedure the way that the officers are behaving.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Arc Republic. If you like what you see and you like what you hear, you can actually keep this mothership going. How? You can make a tax-deductible donation in several ways. One, CashApp us at Arc Republic Media. And you can also go on our website, arcrepublic.com/donate. As well, you can also donate to our fiscal sponsor and our sister organization at Black Farmers Index, that is CashApp, or also go onto their website, blackfarmersindex.com. We are two Black women-owned media organizations who share our profits so folk can thrive.
I wanted to, can we set this up a little bit more for those who don't know or are not familiar with the case and what happens? So June 21st of 2021, Justin Rodwell
and Jaykill Rodwell were outside of their home. I believe that they were looking at clothes. The truck man comes by in the neighborhood. He might have some things he might want to sell. So they're out there looking at whatever, things that he wanted to sell. I believe Jasper Spivey, who is one of the brothers, was a little ways down the street. Branden Rodwell was inside of the family home. So if you look at the video, which has been published by the law enforcement, you'll see at the very beginning how the officers, like I said, plainclothes, unmarked cars, they approached the two brothers, and it's almost like an immediate hands-on. The brothers, Jaykill Rodwell has like a little fanny pack. One of the officers grabs that, and when I say the proper procedure was not followed, and these types of officers are allowed to conduct an investigatory stop if they have a reasonable suspicion to believe that there's some type of criminal activity afoot. That is the law. But they don't have the authority just to stop people. And they certainly don't have the authority just to put their hands on people.
Stop. Hold up like that, bro. Stop. Stop. Brother, like, stop. Grab me, bro. Stop. Pull up my brother like that. Stop.
Hey, give me some units. Give me some units. Stop. Man, stop.
My brother, hey, yo. Get unit. Get in Cypress. Get unit. Stop.
So the way that,
but didn't they say that the reason why they stopped was because they were looking for somebody with dreads and a white shirt?
well, the way the initial police report reads is that they found and they say in the police report, Jaykill Rodwell specifically, they observed him where they weren't looking for anybody. They observed that he had dreads and was wearing a white t-shirt. I mean, he is a black male, even though that wasn't put into the police report. But if you look at him, you can clearly see that he's a black male. So they thought, according to this police report, that a black male who was wearing dreads and a white t-shirt was unusual or something to be suspicious about. And then they
in Newark, New Jersey.
In Newark, New Jersey, in the South Ward. So then they coupled that with the fact that Jaykill had a fanny pack on. So that made them even more suspicious about something. That was the first police report. They made other police reports later on after the incident, and they, tried to assign some type of movements to Jaykill. However, we have the video footage. So you can clearly see what is going on with that video footage. When those officers come up, nobody tries to run. Everybody's standing there looking at them, trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, this, as the police will say in their police report, this is a high crime area. So the people who live there are aware of what kind of area it is. So they're suspicious too. So they're looking, trying to figure out, well, what's going on with these guys. Are they police? They could be police. They could not be police. They could be crooked police. We don't know what's going on. So they're looking, trying to figure it all out. And the officers just, you can see on the video, they simply exit their cars. We don't hear anybody say, put your hands up. We don't hear anybody say, this is police. We don't hear anybody say, you're under arrest. None of that. It's just a straight, attack is how I would phrase it on these individuals standing here. And that's where it gets problematic because, again, people's instincts may kick in. And if it's a family member, a brother, sister, mother, cousin, then of course you're not instinctually going to wait and see what's going on at the end of it all. Now, perhaps if the officers would have come up and said, hey, you guys, put your hands up, we're investigating the whatever, we're the police, can you answer some questions? That type of introductory type of situation may lend to more reflection on the part of the citizen. But that did not happen here.
Attorney Hardaway, I just need some clarification. The officers did not identify themselves as being police officers. They just began to physically or get physical with Justin and Jaykill.
That's what the video looks like. I mean, we all can see the video. You can look at it, you tell me, but there's a portion of it where there is no sound. Now, we don't know what was said in that moment.
Why is there no sound? What was the explanation for that?
Well, I'm told by the state that with these body cameras, with some of these body cameras, there's a lag in the audio when the camera is first turned on for recording. That's what I'm told. Now, I don't have any document saying that about these cameras. And the problem is that the body cameras are from the police. So, it's not as if it came from somebody's house, because, sometimes they can get footage. Somebody have a camera in their house. So they'll go get the footage and they'll show you that they just took a copy, and you kind of have like a chain of custody or some type of information about this camera. But if it's the police camera, they don't give you offhand any information about it other than that it's the camera that the police wore that day. Okay. So we don't know how they extracted the information. We don't really know why there's no sound on this very important portion of the video. These things we don't have answers to, and that makes it all the more problematic.
Mm-hmm. So at what point do the brothers realize that these are cops, and how does it get to a place in which they are arrested?
Well, I don't know what point anybody realized anything. I just look at the video just like everybody else. I mean, I can't step in to speak about what these brothers were thinking. They all have criminal charges, so they are not really in a position to give interviews because, as defendants, you kind of want to save all that stuff for your trial or whatever. You don't really just want to be talking about your case. So I don't have the answers to those questions, but just looking at the video, it seems as if everything just got out of hand.
Recorded. Recorded. I ain't running nowhere.
Get cops on here.
I ain't running nowhere. Look, the camera right there. I ain't running nowhere.
We got cameras on too.
Fuck out of here.
Mike, tell him.
Fuck out of here. Get you too. I'm good. I ain't running. I'm good.
Record everything. Get me too, nigga. Get me too. I'm like that, nigga. Stop.
Yo, back up.
What you want, nigga?
Relax.
What's up, nigga?
Relax.
Stop. Relax. Sit up. Put your hands on my brother. Fuck up me, nigga. Stop. Relax. Put your hands on my brother, nigga. sit up, put your hands on my brother. What's up? Puff me, nigga. Relax. I'm not. Puff me, nigga. I ain't do shit. Fuck wrong with y'all niggas, man. Relax. Put your hands on my brother. Yeah,
there was no opportunity to pause and say, hey, you know, this is what it is. It just was pure chaos as far as I can see on the video. And I just have to go back to that initial encounter and just say, if it was handled a different way, then the result would have been different in my view. And let me just say, and I'm not an activist. I'm not trying to make an indictment or speak badly about, any law enforcement. I'm a lawyer, so, I do lawyer things. But I'm just going to say this as a Black woman. Historically, in the United States of America, we've had this type of contentious relationship with law. It started out as far back as slavery. So people who are not members of this particular race and don't have our history here may not understand why a lot of us are very leery and concerned. And I've had situations where people say, well, they shouldn't have resisted. Well, I don't know of many cases where non-Black folks are approached in this way. Maybe they shouldn't have resisted if you would have approached them the way you approach everybody else. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to just leave that right there. And I'm not going to discuss anything like that anymore. But I'm quite aware of our history here. And it's just unfair to me that some of these laws don't take that into consideration. Because literally the law is for resisting arrest, which is one of the charges against these brothers, is that even if the actions of the officers is unlawful, you still can't resist.
Interesting. I did not know that.
That is the law.
I did not know that.
Right.
By the time they are arrested and detained, how many officers descended upon these four brothers?
Oh, the video, like officers were everywhere. You could see in the very beginning, there weren't even that many people out. There's just like, them and maybe the guy with the shirt, maybe a couple other people down the street, but it really wasn't that crowded out. And then by the end of that video, it's everybody in the neighborhood is out. All the police officers are out. It just turned into an entire situation, an entire situation.
You said some things I thought were that I need clarity on, because I'm not a lawyer. I don't know about lawyering. Thank you for taking this case. You said that the first police report indicated one thing, and then there was a second police report. Can you explain why there can be two police reports?
Well, there should not be. Historically, the police reports are supposed to be written, shortly after the incident. I do not know why these supplemental police reports were written 6 days after the incident and several days after everybody had already been taken into custody. I have no explanation for that. However, I will say this, as I'm researching this body cam stuff, back then when this happened, the law was that the officers could not look at the body cams before they did their report. That law has subsequently changed, and now the law enforcement can look at their body cams before they do the report. So I don't know if one officer just wrote some kind of report, and then after these officers looked at the video, then they followed up to try to further explain why these people were, why the brothers were bothered, beyond the fact of white t-shirt, dreads, and fanny pack, because that's all that's in the first report. So I don't have the answer to that question, why they were written so long after the incident. I know some of the officers supposedly had, they did have to, they were taken to the hospital because there was a little tussle, but I don't believe they were kept overnight. So it wasn't like, they were there and they couldn't leave the hospital, so they couldn't draft their reports. I believe they were released the same day, and I think they had ample time to write a report, but
what are all the charges that the four brothers are facing?
resisting arrest, aggravated assault, and obstruction of justice. So those are third and fourth degree charges. In the grand scheme of things, those are some of the lowest charges. The higher charges would be a second and first degree offense. The higher would be, like a homicide or whatever. And then second, you can have a second degree aggravated assault, but the injuries sustained here by the police officers did not warrant that type of charge. So you have third degree and fourth degree charges here that we're dealing with.
Okay, so four brothers were arrested, detained, but three were able to leave or why were they able to not be detained and one still remains? Could you explain that?
Sure. So now, if you recall, like prior to 2017, they had a money bail. You could, you would get a defendant would get arrested. The judge would set a bail, or a computer bail would be set. And if you could pay it, you can go home. Now in 2017, they changed that into no money bail. So what happens now is if the prosecutor wants you to be detained, they'll do a motion. And you have to have the defendant has to have a hearing, a detention hearing. And the judge now makes the decision whether or not a person goes home or not. What is guiding the judge is what's called a PSA score. And the PSA score is supposed to, be an objective type of assessment of whether or not a person should be allowed to go home. And it has something to do with, the chances that you might commit another offense, the chances that you may or may not appear. There's a whole thing that goes into this scoring thing. So with respect to Justin, his score resulted in a recommendation from PSA that he should be released. That was the recommendation after they did all of their factoring in of whatever they decided, that he should be released. Now, according to this law, however, that is not binding on the judge. The judge has a discretion to override that based on other sets of criteria that the judge can take into consideration and detain the individual anyway. So the judges don't necessarily have to be the same for all the defendants. So I believe three of the brothers had three different judges. So you may get a different result as a result of a different judge. Our judge decided that, notwithstanding the PSA score and the recommendation for release, that Justin should be detained. And the primary reasoning behind that was that he would may be in danger of obstructing the case. And that's one of the reasons that a judge can keep a defendant. They might interfere with the case, or they might be a danger to the community. There's all these different criteria. At the bottom line is the judge has the authority to keep you or let you go.
I'm sorry. We're going to get back to Justin. I thought that it's very interesting because from what I've been told, if there's any kind of maybe disruption, it possibly is the Newark Police Department and what they have done following the arrests. For example, they raided the house, or there was a search warrant executed on the house. Correct. Right. And so it was in the middle of the night. I have there's a video circulating. I'm going to put it up. Well, whatever time of day it was, but they had the search warrant. They went to the house. They also set up some type of blockade or a check system. Do you know why they did that? What was their reasoning for that? Well, I mean, if you're asking me, I can only guess. I mean, I'm not privy to these discussions. So, I with respect to the request for a search warrant, I think that the officers probably were hoping that they would find a gun, because that's what they said, what prompted this whole entire thing in the first place. There was a gun. That's what was prompting the whole entire thing in the first place.
that, and this came out, I believe, later on in one of those supplemental reports, that the officers thought that because of the way Jaykill was looking, he was opening his eyes, he was closing his eyes, he was taking a step here, he was looking all about, that led the officer to believe that the fanny pack may contain a gun. So now, and if you look at the video, you really don't hear anybody saying anything about a gun. I think maybe at the end somewhere, somebody says something after everything is all over. But, you know, it's curious to me because if the officers would have thought that that fanny pack had a gun by feel or whatever, usually, you know, the officers will alert their colleagues. So everybody would be on the same page that, you know, there's a dangerous weapon here. So that's not on the videotape that I saw. Now, maybe somebody else can look at it and tell me different. But, you know, I've looked at it a few times and I don't see any of that. So I think that perhaps maybe they executed the search warrant. They got a search warrant from a judge and they alleged certain facts in order to obtain the search warrant. And the only possible reason that I could think of is that maybe they were trying to find additional evidence. I don't know.
Okay, where currently, where is the case? Where are we? Justin is still in jail.
Justin is still in jail.
Okay.
We have had the detention hearing. I have appealed the judge's decision up into the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has given us no relief. There was another opportunity for Justin to be released under the 90-day rule, which says that the case has to be indicted within 90 days unless certain criteria is met. And he wasn't indicted in 90 days. The things that were supposed to be done by the state were not done. So I asked for Justin's release. I was denied by a second judge. I appealed that to the Supreme Court. We got no relief. So now the case is proceeding with, and the only way that I can go in now to try to get Justin released is if there's some material change in circumstance really having to do with the evidence. Like if something comes up that's just nobody knew about before, then I could try to make application for his release. But now we're dealing with the case and we're in motion practice, and eventually this case is going to go to trial. But meanwhile, Justin will sit unless we can think of some way legally to ask for his release.
Are you pushing for the trial to start soon, or how does that go?
We have to wait until motion practice is completed, and then the trial can be set.
What makes this situation, and correct me if this is an incorrect term, lopsided or possibly unfair?
Well, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, it just more has to do with police aggression against citizens on the street. You know, I think that these brothers were put between a rock and a hard place. You don't know, just because somebody, I'm going to say this, and I don't mean it in any type of antagonistic way, but just because you see white folks coming down on you does not automatically mean that they're police. And just because you see white folks with maybe perhaps a vest on does not automatically mean that they're police. If you see, because you can get a vest from Amazon. I mean, I'm sure everybody saw the raid on the Capitol January 6th and what all those folks were wearing. And I'm not talking about the police officers. I'm talking about the people who stormed the Capitol. So you could get these things that may lead you to believe that it's police, but you don't know. And if it's the police officer's responsibility to say, hey, you know, we're police, we're investigating something. It's their, I think, responsibility to be calm, not to escalate a situation, not to just run up on somebody and start grabbing on them and grabbing their stuff, because then you're put between a rock and a hard place, especially in the light of the George Floyds of the world and all these other things that are happening now. And if these are your brothers, now remember, these are brothers. These are not just people, random people on the street. So this is why it's important, because you Everybody should have the comfort to know that if they're not doing anything, that they can go out and be outside and not be accosted and not have to wonder, well, who are these people, attacking us? And why are you here? And if you listen to that tape, Justin, my client, is saying that throughout the whole thing. Like, what are y'all doing? Like, why are y'all come down here like this? What are you doing? You can't come down here like this. He's trying, and nobody is answering his questions. Nobody.
Do you think that the proceeding has the litigation side, the hearings being postponed and denied relief? What are your thoughts about that process, part of the process?
Well, I think it's systematic. I mean, I'm sorry. Well, systematic as well, and systemic is what I meant to say. When people do things for a certain way a long, long time, and it becomes institutionalized, it's very hard to work against it. So this is a personal belief of mine, not a lawyer belief. This is Cynthia's belief. I think that the legal system is fraught with systemic racism. So when the powers that be and all the stars align and everything comes together when dealing with these types of cases, the viewpoint is not from the viewpoint of the defendant. It's always from the viewpoint of the police officer. Like society at large, they don't want people to be reacting to police officer aggression. They're like, no, just don't do anything, just wait. But you have to understand, again, like I said, the history of it all. You're not gonna, I'm sure they were scared to death, the brothers, because they didn't know. So do I wait here and perhaps these guys, whoever they are, perhaps they come here to do us harm? Should I wait to see if that actually happens? Or should I instinctually defend myself?
Right, which I think is a good point. When I was speaking to Africa, he's saying that this is during the time where the George Floyd incident just happened. And the conversation, especially me interviewing for Black men and the Black community in general, but Black men specifically, is the police are scared of us. And so, or there's this fear or this unknowing and this perhaps not even wanting to know, this ignorance that propels them to take extreme measures. It's not an ignorance, it's our history. They're afraid of us and we're afraid of them. We're afraid of each other. So, if you're going to say, the brothers didn't seek the police out, the police sought them out. So the one who seeks you out is the one who should hold the ultimate responsibility of how this all panned out. Because had the brothers had their way, nobody would have bothered them that day. They would have bought their shirts or did whatever they were doing, and they would have gone on about their way. But that's not what happened. And they were put between a rock and a hard place, and the system does not account for that. The legal system does not account for that. And it's historical. It's historical. So historically, and specifically to the area attorney Hardaway, Newark Police Department has for years been under scrutiny and as well as investigation, most recently the ACLU, in which a consent decree was passed. Can you explain that and how this is relevant to the case? Sure. So the consent decree was signed in 2016. There was an independent monitor who was appointed, Peter Harvey, who is a lawyer. He was paid $7.4 million over a period of 5 years, and that's taxpayers' money, to monitor the police and try to put an end to some of the issues that were identified by the underlying report, because there was a big report that came out. So one of the issues, and why it's relevant to this case, was racial profiling, unlawful detentions, and use of excessive force. I think all of those elements are present in this situation. So Peter Harvey was supposed to conduct audits, monitor the activities of the police officers, to try to come up with a plan for the city to eradicate some of these things.
And 5 years has passed. So at the end of the 5 years, 2016, 2021, we get the Justin Rodwell brothers case, which has all these issues still glaring in plain view. So I'm glad you mentioned this, because I actually wrote a letter to Mr. Harvey in reference to what was going on here. And not because I necessarily thought that he would do anything, but I wanted to put on record that, despite whatever efforts that you think you may have made, these things are still happening in our community. So I didn't get a response. However, Mr. Harvey was, and I think it was a couple of, maybe Director O'Hara, there was like a webinar about the consent decree very recently. It was, I forget which month it was, but it definitely was in 2021. So, and Ms. Rodwell, she attended the webinar as well. And so we had questions about, what about the Rodwell Spivey case? And essentially the answer was this: we don't look at individual cases. So what we do is we do an audit of cases that we receive through the police department. And my whole thing is, so now you're auditing the police department with documents given to you by the police department. It makes no sense to me. But I kid you not, this is what was said. So as far as Mr. Harvey was concerned, Rodwell Spivey's brother's case, because it was specific and it was identifiable and it was real, was not something that the independent monitor wanted to be bothered with. Or I shouldn't even say I'm being flippant, but was not part of his methodology for trying to put an end to some of these civil rights violations.
Have you reached out to the ACLU in general and just said, okay, Harvey, you can go to the left?
I don't reach out for you said the ACLU. As far as I'm concerned about the ACLU, they are a big organization, and if they wanted to find out about cases, they don't need Cynthia Hardaway to call them to find out about cases. Mm-hmm. So Mr. Harvey, I contacted, not because I thought that he would do anything, but since you are specifically put in place and being paid millions of dollars to address this, I wanted him to know that there are cases, and here's one, a real life case where there's a man who's actually locked up and brothers who are charged, that it's still happening in. So whatever you're doing to try to stop it, there seems to be some type of defect maybe in your methodology. But I don't, as a lawyer, reach out for organizations. A lot of organizations have reached out for me and asked me to come and speak. And I have, and they have been very supportive. I have not been contacted by the ACLU.
Of course, you are in contact with Mrs. Rodwell and the Rodwell Spivey brothers family. Where are they emotionally, mentally right now?
Oh, well, they're tired. They're tired. Their lives were interrupted. So, when somebody gets locked up, it's not just the person that gets locked up gets the brunt for sure. So now, Justin is actually doing real time at the Essex County Jail. And what all is going on with the Essex County Jail in terms of the violence, the COVID, whatever. So he's there doing that. But at the same time, the family members are still feeling the brunt of this as well. Ms. Rodwell Justin had custody of his daughter. So Ms. Rodwell has to pick that up and, still have to go to work and take over his responsibilities. Everything that he was doing in his life has come to a standstill. And the brothers too, because now they have charges. So, when you go to try to get a job and do all of that stuff and you got a pending charge, well, nobody's going to hire you. So everybody's at a standstill in that entire household. It's affecting everybody. And not to mention the harassment, which I'm sure Mr. Africa told you about, and Ms. Rodwell will tell you about. Not even
that was the next question about there has been subsequent harassment or what has been the responses of the police because this case or these cases are picking up more visibility.
You said, what have the police done to respond to this?
No, not in like a good way. Like, hi, let's talk about it. No.
Absolutely
like,
nothing.
No, like what are some of the reports, right? Could you give us like more specifics about what the family has been telling you as this case is going along? Like, is there surveillance? Is there
Yes.
Being followed?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They live each day in fear because they don't know what's going to happen to them. They have unmarked cars, I'm told, come up to their house, flash lights, drive up and down. They probably have a bunch of cameras, and if they don't, they probably should get them. It's just, I couldn't even imagine. It's terrible. It's terrible.
So I know we talked about this, but I want to ask this again. Maybe this is another way. What this case is so high stakes for me? What makes it high stakes right now?
Because it gets to the crux of the matter. This is the crux of the matter. We have video footage. So, prior to the video cam footage, it's always this story, this side story, and this side story. Who you going to believe? 9 times out of 10 in the court system, the judges will believe the officers. A lot of times, maybe the jurors as well. But this is, in my view, important because in all of my years of practicing, this is the first time that I've had such a thing happen. It's not the first time I heard about such a thing. It's the first time I had such a thing captured on video. So I can see, and I see that what was done at the initial part of that video did not align with what I understand proper police procedure to be. And that's why it's important because, if officers do not see folks doing anything wrong and leave them alone, that's one less interaction. And whether the officer's afraid of the defendant or the defendant is afraid of the officer, or white officers afraid of black men and black men afraid of white officers, if they leave you alone, we don't even have to decide all the rest of that stuff. You understand? We just go on about your way. If I'm not doing anything, go on about your way and deal with someone who is. And if you're really rightfully dealing with somebody who is doing something wrong, then you're not in the wrong. But there's no way under any circumstance that you can just come and mess with me and I'm not doing anything. That's the problem. That is the problem that a lot of people face, and quite frankly, Black people in this country. And it's no secret.
Attorney Hardaway, when is the next hearing or the next trial date?
The next court date is February 28th. I believe it's going to be a virtual proceeding. And it has to do with the motions that we're, filing. It won't be a trial date.
Okay, I'm sorry, court date. Okay. What is it that the public can do in order to assist in this case?
I don't know. You're publicizing it, so people knowing about it is always good. I think people need to do with what they are capable of doing. You're a news publication, so publish it. If there are activists out there, you're an activist or organization, activate. I'm a lawyer, so I'm going to be doing the lawyer thing. We only could do what we know how to do. I can't tell anybody out there how to do their situation, just like they can't tell me how to do my situation. But whatever it is that you're good at, then do it. Just, do it with no hesitation and no reservation.
One question, I should have asked this in the beginning.
Sure.
At the top of the interview, what made you take this case?
Oh, definitely because I thought that this was a seminal case. I thought from the very beginning, when I first saw that video footage, that this was what we've all been talking about all of this time. And here it is, captured right on videotape. We don't have to guess about it. We don't have to, and the police published it. I didn't put the video out there. They put the video out there to spin a narrative because they first came out and said that the police were attacked by a mob and they were kicked and pummeled and thrown to the ground. And the video does not show that. So this footage is the first minute of this footage made me take this case. Wow. Because I can't divorce myself from being a Black woman in America, and I have Black children. Boys and girls, I should say men and women. And, it's important for them to be able to walk anywhere and not have to fear that this may happen to them. That's what makes this an extremely important case. And if anybody has anything that they could do to bring this case to the attention of people and to understand it, this is not just a Black or white thing, or it's not just that. It's way deeper than that. So the understanding of it all is the important thing. And, if I got to get on here and talk about it and explain the law and let people know what's what, that's what I know how to do. So I'm going to do that.
Thank you so much, Attorney Hardaway. I appreciate you. Thank you for speaking with Ark Republic. Please keep us abreast about what's going on.
Let's embark on the Ark Republic to hear current news that's published. More than gossip and chatter, covering current affairs that matter. We talk issues with professional views, all keeping you in queue. We wanted a higher vibe for these days and times, the freedom voices and minds, reporting the sign of the times, so all can build. Let's shine, yeah.